morning, everyone, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Sudhir Rao, and it's such a pleasure to be here. And we're going to be talking about cooking up a story. Well, this is me today. But given things that have happened in my life, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't even be existing. So let me talk about three quick events that happened in my life, starting from my childhood, and then we will move to the next slide. 1979, and that makes me very old, okay? Because I was around 12 years. I guess you've guessed my age by now. I was going with my parents. We were traveling to a temple town in a matador van with 15 other people. As luck would have it, we were terribly delayed. And at around midnight, on a very lonely stretch of road with absolutely no lights, the van stopped. Everyone woke up. All we could hear was the sound of rushing water. We got down. We didn't know what to do. The driver said, "You know what? Don't worry about it. We can make it through." And there are roads where we live where water flows over it and you can just drive through. Something didn't seem to be right. And given the fact that there was hardly any traffic on that road, everyone in the van decided to head back. Well, we did head back, and about 15 miles back down the road, we crossed a truck. We woke up the driver, and he told us that a dam had burst and the road had been washed away. He told us, had we gone in there, we wouldn't have survived. My first event. Second, that happened in 1993. My third job involved me sailing on a crude oil tanker across the world. Everything was good for the first 3 months until we hit the North Atlantic in winter. We had the worst winter in 75 years, and in those 2 months following, I experienced some of the most violent storms on board. My first one was the worst. After that, I just, gave up and said, "Look, there's nothing much I can do about it." And these storms are huge in the sense that when you're sailing, you can see the water rise above you. The ship goes straight up, hangs over the waves, and plunges into the ocean. Now, there are two motions, forward and sideways. So I ended up feeling like a tossed salad, and the storm lasted 3 days. That was the least of our worries. We ended up with more. We actually outran a storm that sank another ship following behind us with no survivors. Second. The third one was a little more personal in that I have a problem, or I had a problem called sleep apnea, which means that if I sleep during the night, I get up feeling tired because my brain doesn't get enough oxygen. In 2007 and 2000 or 2008, I think it was 2008, while driving between Washington and New York on I-95, I fell asleep at the wheel. 10 seconds later, I woke up. I was alone in the car. Luckily, there were no cars around, and I managed to pull over into a parking lot and slept. Now, why I am telling you these stories is it seems there's a purpose to my life. And this seems to be one of those purposes where I come here to speak with you and share my experiences with you. So we wouldn't be here if there wasn't a greater design. Now, I wasn't always like this. Growing up, I was like this. Terrible speaker. My legs would quake. My mouth would go dry. My stomach would churn. Now, quick question. I'm pretty sure most of you are good speakers. How many of you actually have stage fear?
Almost everyone.
I have, yeah. Yeah.
And when you walk out on the stage and you look at it, look at the people right in front of you, does your mind go blank?
Yes.
The mouth goes dry, the legs go a little bit weak. You're not going to fall over, but it happens. Um, I was like this for a very long time, and I can't honestly say I've gotten over it. But um, between the time I was a kid and all the way up to um, my first job, I was terrible at speaking. But I chugged along because I had some good help along the way. Made a lot of mistakes. But my worst one came in front of my boss in Europe. Now I became the account manager of a big client in Cognizant. I was in London at that time. And it was my first presentation to my super boss. I stepped up to the table. 2 minutes later, he said, Sudhir, what you're saying is rubbish. I can't understand a word of what you're saying. And he walked out. That was one of the lowest points of my life because I thought, oh my God, I really made a hash of it. My boss, his name is Rob Morley, was a gentleman. He stepped up and said, you know what? This is a gift he's given you. Um, be glad that he said that straight to your face. It's better you did this here rather than somewhere outside. And he proceeded to help me out with my speaking skills. But I still hadn't gotten to storytelling at that point in time. Then two gentlemen helped me out, and I call them my two masters. I'm sure you will hear from the second one. The first one, Sai Sridhar, helped me with my advanced communication skills. He put me on camera and showed me really what I looked like on camera, and it wasn't pleasant to look at it. Now, the second person, Sukumar, and I'm sure Manav will have a session from Sukumar. So he was an amazing storyteller, and he took us through a program. So some of what you're going to be hearing came from him. I did a 2-month session under him before I started doing other sessions across the company and outside as well. So the best way to figure out what a story looks like is to tell one. Like, so here's the story for you. This is a story of a very lonely man and how his loneliness actually led him to success. Born in 1976, he had a great childhood in Ukraine, Kiev, basically. But it wasn't very long before things started going bad. The secret police in Kiev were against Jews, and they started torturing people, pulling them in, arresting them. So the family decided to leave Kiev and try and get to the land of the free and the brave, America. But as luck would have it, his mother and he made it, his father did not. Well, he still believed in the American dream, but his ears were not very pleasant. His mother worked as a babysitter, and he worked in a store while he went to school. Most of the time, they lived off food coupons that they got at Social Security. They didn't have enough money to afford more than that. His first job came when he joined college, and he had actually taught himself programming by then. He became a security tester with Ernst and Young. Now, he worked on that for a few years before he joined Yahoo as an infrastructure engineer in 1997. Um, now, after doing that, he lost his father in 1998 in Kiev. And in 2000, his mother fell prey to cancer. It was a very difficult period for him. He was alone in the United States, did not have too many friends. He did have one person who helped him out. Now, after that happened, he took a break in 2007 and spent a year traveling across South America before he came back and looked for a job. Now, unfortunately, he was rejected by Facebook. He and a friend of his had applied to Facebook, and both of them were rejected by Facebook. But where one door closes, another opens. When he was visiting one of his friends, Ukrainian friends, and they were sitting down at the kitchen table and speaking, an idea occurred to him. He wanted to be in touch with his family in Ukraine, but his phone didn't show whether his family was online or not, whether they were awake, asleep, or just not there. So iPhone had released some apps for development. So I picked it up and started developing an app. Now the app was very useful because he didn't have to rely on a phone book. He just could look up there and see if people were available. So when he did that, his friends started using it, and more people asked for features. The app started changing. Now, he was being chased by a lot of financial folks. They wanted to invest, but he didn't want anybody investing in this app because he was doing it for society. The other thing he said was that if I get somebody to invest into it, I become a slave of that organization, of venture capitalists. But in the end, Sequoia Capital invested into this app with the promise that they would not interfere with the design. Now, this gentleman, I'm sure you all know who he is, came back and talked to him. He quoted him. He said, "We want you. We like what you're doing." In 2014, he closed a deal with Facebook. Can anyone guess who this person was? You're on mute, Indresh. Yes, Anant.
From WhatsApp, I don't remember his name.
Yes, absolutely. This
John
was
Combe?
Jan Combe. Yes, it's absolutely Jan Combe. Now, Jan Combe got $19 billion from a company that rejected him back in 2007. Imagine if he had been accepted by Facebook then, we would not have WhatsApp today. Now, what's more ironical is that He signed this deal with Facebook in that very building where his mother and he would stand for food coupons when he was a kid. Isn't it amazing how life changes? So, now let's look at stories. You had the last session, it was a very beautiful session last month. I looked at the video, and one of the wonderful things that he said was get to know your audience. That's very important. In addition to getting to know your audience, the important thing is to identify the zeitgeist. And zeitgeist is a German word, which means what are the prevailing conditions at that point in time? What do people understand? For example, if I have an audience today that I'm speaking with, and I use the conditions, say, in 1965, would they even understand me? So zeitgeist is about, can they relate to what is happening? When you speak to them, can you relate to what's happening? If I go to my son and tell him, hey, son, you know what? This is just like the way telegrams were. And my son would give me a glare and say, what the hell are telegrams? Because he's a Gen Z. So in addition to identifying your target audience, the most important thing is figure out whether you're using the right examples to tell your story. Do people identify with it? And then it gets down to what is the essence of the story. And the best way we can do that is through movies. And use the what if scenario. For example, Lucy. Have you all seen Lucy?
Yes, I have.
Yep.
Okay, great. So what is the what if in Lucy? What do you think is a what if in Lucy? What is Lucy based upon? What is the central theme of Lucy? Anyone? So let me give you that example and maybe you can get it from the other one. So Lucy basically works on the principle. It says our brain works at only a 10% capacity. What if we were to use 100% of the brain? And that's the essence of the entire movie. That is the essence on which that movie works. So what is the essence of your story? Remember I told you my story? Right up front?
Right.
What if there was a bigger power that is determining my fate and putting me in front of you? King's Speech. And if many of you have not seen it, I would recommend you see it. Anyone who has seen it?
Yeah. This
King's
is
Speech.
yes, I have seen.
Yep.
This is Rahul.
Yep. Yes, Rahul. If you have seen it, then that's fantastic.
Yep.
Can you talk about what it is that drives King's Speech?
It's about, I guess, like the stammering that he had, and how
Yes.
he overcomes that. So
Exactly. Brilliant, Rahul. So the what if here is, what if the king with a stammer has to deliver an inspiring speech during Christmas to the nation which is at war? And the entire speech is based upon that. The third one is The Incredibles, which is based upon what would happen if superheroes were asked to resign by the government or go and retire from the superhero duties and asked to lead a normal life. So what is your essence of the story that you would like to deliver? Then construct it, put it together. The first one is all about setting it up. This again goes the same way movies do. Who are we? What are we all about? So that's about 10% of the time. And then comes the plot. Relate this to any story. go back to the good versus bad fights, everything that 65% is based upon the conflicts, the emotions that come out of it, the fight, the challenges that people face. You take the case of Lucy when she actually gets on the drug and she doesn't realize it at that time that is a drug which is causing a change in her anatomy. The change, the internal conflict that she goes through before she starts accepting the changes is the central theme of the movie. So your story is all about what is that conflict that you're resolving? What is the plot of your story? And last one is how do you resolve it? What is the solution? And what is the message you're going to leave with anyone who is watching it? So if you put this together, then the next thing that remains is how are you going to narrate the story? What comes first? Now, if you watch a movie like The Panic Room, you can actually do it in a sequential order. Or a movie like The Panic Room, which started with a scene from the middle of the movie and then went back in time to talk about it. For example, today I chose to put a picture or a photo of mine from today right up front, switched back to talk about a story, and then went further back in time before going chronologically forward. There are various ways you can start it. Or you can give people a shock. You can say, what if we were to die tomorrow? People are going to sit up and take notice. Use the pause effectively. Use your voice modulation effectively. Think about when you're going to raise your voice or lower it to whisper. And this is as important in a story as anything else. Once you do it, start practicing. Because practice makes perfect. You could look in the mirror and practice what you're saying before you go back up on the stage and talk in front of people. But I'm going to give you one more way to practice this because there are so many of you. And this is a suggestion that I would like to leave with you. You can help each other succeed. If you can create groups of 2 or 3, you decide how many people there are. Create triads. And when you write a story, run the story past the other 2 members of your triad. Now, the way to work the story is very simple. It comes from a practice that was made very famous by Pixar. Pixar Animation Studios, which Steve Jobs started and then came to Disney. Well, they came out with some very successful movies, and one of the reasons for the success was this activity called plussing. Those of you who know, it will be old hat to you. For others, when we walk into a meeting, and typically a review meeting, most of the meetings go for a very long time because someone is going to look at it and say, this doesn't look right, but I don't know what's wrong with it. So plussing was all about making reviews positive and telling people that, look, this looks good. Would you like to do something else with it? Which is, if you have a solution to it, then give it. If you have no solution, it's just a critique, then hold back because that's going to be of no use to anybody. And I can't explain it any better than Go back to a story about an artist. This artist was a budding one. He painted a very beautiful picture and went and put it up in New York, Times Square, wrote down a message saying, I'm a budding artist. I painted this painting. Would you please mark any of the areas of the painting if it's not right? He comes back in the evening and he leaves a brush with red paint. He comes back in the evening and he sees this painting covered all over with red cross marks. And he is dejected. He says, I'm a bad painter. So he goes back to his master and says, Master, you know something? I'm a pretty bad painter. The master says, tell me why you're saying that. He says, look, I painted this painting and people feel it's not good. He said, you know what? Can you paint one more like this? He says, yeah, I'll do that. Not a problem. So he goes ahead and paints one more painting, and the master and he go back the next day to Times Square. He puts it down there, and the master writes something on a note, leaves the paintbrush and the paint there, and they walk away. In the evening, when they go back to look at the painting, there is not a single mark on it. So he says, what did you actually write on that note, master? He said, if you find a problem with this painting, here is a brush. Pick it up and fix it. And this is exactly why Pixar's animation movies, and you can read about them online if you've not already done so, were so successful. Because there were thousands of animators working on the movies. But the only reason they succeeded, and the movie where plussing became fantastically, is Toy Story 2. And that is because they gave it to a team that was not very experienced, and then an experienced team came and looked at it and said, this can't go, but they still had a timeline to deliver it in, and everybody was working overtime. It was so bad that an animator actually put his child in a car and forgot about it for hours before he realized that he had left his child in the car. So the president of Pixar was stunned. They said something has to be done. We have to make this environment more positive. So they went all out to make the environment positive. And one of the changes they brought in was the fact that when you work as a group, it's got to be positive. So we use the concept of plussing. So when you give reviews, give it with a solution or not at all. So if you want a recipe for cooking up a good story, here it is. Figure out who is going to be your audience, who will be eating your dish. Then go to the 3-act story preparation, set up the plot and the resolution. And when you deliver it, sprinkle the spices on it. How are you going to deliver it? What is the tone? Where will you stop? How will you order the content? Practice it individually and with your friends. And then go ahead, talk. Serve it hot. So when I worked with Sukumar, and since then, these are some of the things that come to me. Get your audience involved in the story. Make it personal. Create a lot of suspense. Bring people to life. There's nothing better than live stories. Think of all those inspirational stories you've heard. Build up to the point where they will always remember what you want to leave with them, and end with a positive takeaway. And here is my positive takeaway for you. For generations, we have learned stories at our mothers' and grandmothers' feet that we remembered for years. We may not remember the Heisenberg principle that we learned in ninth class, or even something that we learned in undergrad or grad. But stories stay with us. So I'm going to stop now and I will take questions, either for stories or for speaking.
Awesome. Thank you, Sudhir.
Over to you, Manav.
And sure, thank you. Team, any thoughts, questions, anything you want to, or clarifications, not maybe questions. Over to you guys.
Hi, Sudhir. Good morning. This is Anant here.
Hey, Anant.
One of the best presentations that I have seen by far. Thank you very much for giving this wonderful speech to us today.
You're very welcome. I certainly hope it helps, you guys. It's always very difficult for people to unlearn and learn. And so, I appreciate the fact that you're doing something like this. It takes a lot of courage, Anand.
Sure, it does.
So,
thank you, Sudhir.
Good luck.
Sudhir, this is actually Amit here.
Welcome. You have any questions? Yes, Amit. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for the for the session, and I in fact attend what in fact just mentioned right now. And one new word what I just learned today was actually blessing. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, you are welcome. You're welcome, and that credit goes to Sukumar because I learned about plussing in Sukumar's session, and we worked in teams of 2. And when we were 3 teams altogether, and each team would do a story. So the story went like this: we took a story. First, he gave us 30 minutes to present, then he gave us 15 minutes to present, and then he gave us 5 minutes to present. And the same story had to be brought down every time. It was almost like an elevator pitch. But when we gave reviews to the other 2 teams, he was very clear that if you're going to critique them, give them a solution. Otherwise, don't open your mouth. And this works even in corporate. I'm telling you, if we implement it in our meetings, we'll have a lot of time.
Exactly. I kind of follow the same thing, but I love the word. I kind of follow the same thing, but I love the word, and it in fact works pretty well as well then.
I'm so glad, and I'm so glad you're following it. That makes a lot of difference.
So, Sudhir, this is Manav. I have a curious thought. See, personally, even though
Sure.
I consider myself that I practice a lot, however, you know what? I hate one thing in the part of the practicing, so want to hear your thoughts. I don't like to practice in front of people. Okay, I love to do it. I video record myself. I go in front of a mirror and keep on questioning myself, slapping myself wherever I am wrong. But it's like in our RFPs and all, we have to do the dry runs. I simply detest that. I don't like that because personally, I can grow faster than hearing somebody tell me, "Oh, Manav, you know what? This point is wrong." It's my improvisation. It's my mind. What do you think? Am I wrong, or how can I improve it out?
No, you're not wrong, Manav. Everybody has their own style. This was just a suggestion, and I'll be very honest with you. I don't practice either. When I walk out on a stage, going to speak in front of people, there are a couple of things that happen. One, I know the general construct of my talk. I know how it flows. Right? I'm prepared for that. But I know that I have to expect the unexpected. Things can happen. Someone may raise a question that I have not even thought of, or someone may come up and actually question me. Right? I know I'm, not answering your question directly, but I will answer your question in due course. There was a situation where in an audience of 400, someone actually got up and corrected me in front of everybody. And you know what? He was right. Now, there were 2 ways I could respond. One is to say, shut up and sit down. I know what I'm talking about. I chose the second one, which is to tell the audience, please give him a big hand for correcting me. I was wrong. He was right. Because when we go up on the stage, our job is not basically to deliver a speech. It is to learn together. So, to go up there and deliver the speech, do it the way it feels best for you, Manav. If you feel that the best way is that I practice in front of a mirror, I don't want to do it in front of everybody, so be it. Why I suggested plussing was not for the practice. It was for walking through the entire story with people. To say, does the story work or not? But if you're not comfortable with that, so be it. For everybody, something different works.
No, that's true. That is true. Means it's just a little hesitation, even though, in RFPs we have so many characters and everybody has a value to be added. So hence I go with the flow. I was just wondering, is there a better way also to, get comfortable? Means I am not comfortable doesn't mean that I am not good at it. I still try to be better at it. However, that was my only thought, which I was trying to see that if you have any experience.
Okay. Why are you not comfortable? I think let's get to the bottom of that. If you want to do it now or if you want to do it off camera, I'm okay with either.
Oh, no, that's fine. Means since this forum is for everybody, maybe somebody else has it and they are not able to speak, so I'm okay to be vulnerable. So the why I am not comfortable is my biggest reason is, see, as you earlier said, right? I know my story. I have prepped it out to an extent before I enter into even a preparation room. Okay, so I know what I want to build a story on, and my personal choices, my improvisation and articulation of thoughts is where I probably feel I have good strengths on. Okay. However, the moment somebody starts to pinpoint certain aspects, I always feel that some of them are good, like you said, applaud that person because I was wrong. But many a times I feel they are so trivial, and I know where in my story I am going to cover them up, rather than putting it at a point where they think it should be there. So that is where it ticks me off that hold your thoughts. I will definitely cover it. But you know what? Let me speak my story rather than you telling that, hey, add punctuation over here versus somewhere else. So that is my only reason.
Fair enough. Okay. So here is, if you really want to do it without getting these, here is what I would suggest. And this is something I use in my leadership workshop. I use a concept of feed forward. So feed forward is where you ask people for their view of how it could be better. And this is feed forward looks at the future. They give their view. You say thank you very much. You accept it because it is a gift. You don't have to implement it if you don't want to. And you make that clear right up. So why I am suggesting this, Manav, is that a lot of times what we say and what we mean may seem perfectly clear to us as individuals. But I've seen in a number of cases that the way I have articulated it has gone down a different way with somebody else. And when that person raises it and says, you know what, this is what I thought you said, I went, oh, I didn't think they would take this meaning. Because our mind works in a certain manner, in a certain direction. Every one of us, we have a bias. That's a cognitive bias. So there are certain blind spots that everyone has, and I have them too. And the only way I balance those blind spots is by getting feedback or feed forward, as the case may be. But feed forward with the proviso that I will use what I want to use. You cannot tell me that I have to accept it. I will accept it. This is a gift. So sometimes it can actually help you redraft something very critical. But that's
I like it.
suggestion, and I leave that with you.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think maybe something to unlearn and practice. But this is a good one. Feed forward. So good.
Question, Sudhir, is there a better way to accept that somewhere in your presentation, probably whatever you said, the audience did not like it and still proceed it without hurting him? Because this has happened probably 10, 12 years back. One of our automation person was presenting, and two feedbacks we got. One, he said, one of the VPs in a pharma company, just hold your thought, I'll come there. And the VP got all angry saying, hey, you just asked me to shut up. Hold your thought is a polite way of asking you to shut up, and I don't like that. And the meeting went a little bit south. Right. The second, he went on a rampage speaking about automation. Later, a client partner gave a feedback that, guys, your field is so passionate. He was so passionate about his field of automation, but 50% of the crowd were not from testing or automation. So they were getting bored after a while when his passion started coming into the presentation. So it kind of became a drag on even the client partner because he's from a marketing sales background, really not from automation. So how do you balance that when you have a crowd who is there for an RFP? Not everyone is going to be in your technology, but they would like to hear your solutions and how you are going to really, leap bounce them in their initiatives as well, right? The procurement, for example, is not the people from those. Right. They do give opinions. How do we politely stop them and still proceed?
So, Sanjeev, the question here, is it Sanjeev, right, who's speaking?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, Sanjeev, is your question that about stopping people from giving those kind of responses, or is it about us being able to handle those situations? Which one is it?
Handle those situations and without hurting them, kind of move forward with, while take course correct it as much as you can, because we practice a lot before going there. So obviously, a little bit deviation we do expect. People will come with their view thought and they'll probably derail our presentation as well, which is normal. But after a point, if it starts derailing, then probably you also have a goal to kind of leave something on the table and come back from the presentation. That then probably completely deviates, and there'll be people who will put that stick in the spoke always.
No, that's a very beautiful question, Sanjeev, and I have also experienced that. So one of the things that's very important for us as speakers and storytellers is to watch our audience very carefully. We are making eye contact with everybody. We're trying to figure out, hey, is everybody actually listening, or is someone dropping their head, picking up the mobile phone and starting to type on it? If that is the case, then we may want to stop and say, do you have any questions? Right. Take it to a logical stop and say, I have been speaking for about 10 minutes now. Do you have any questions for me? Or is there some part of my presentation that you did not understand? That's number one. Number two, when we walk into this presentation, see, in the past, technology was very different from business. Today, technology is integrated with business. That means technology runs business. Today, the banks, the pharmas, everyone, the technology is embedded into the business. So the expectation is that when we speak about automation, we speak about what automation brings to the table. To, at a certain point in time, move away from technology. So this is the know your audience principle and Zeitgeist. Do the audience actually understand what we are trying to convey to them? I'm a technology person and I'm speaking to them. And you set the context very clearly, saying that these people are not technology people. Then there is a possibility that we are shooting ourselves in the foot. The third, when there is someone like a senior person who raises this, then it depends upon the person at that point in time. Say, okay, Would you mind if I continued? I'm happy to take your question right now, but I thought if I took 5 more minutes, I may give you the answer to what you're expecting. If you still don't get an answer at the end of 5 minutes, I would love to take your question and answer it. Or something to that effect. It's one that comes from practice.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah. That helps to be.
Right? So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Sudhir.
This is Naman, and I just wanted to know when you say show and don't tell, it's one of the point here. So you would emphasize more on pictures and presentations, or how do you elaborate that?
Okay, beautiful question. So, show don't tell is about when you talk about an experience, take them there. Take your audience there. So I'll give you an example, a quick example from what happened yesterday. So yesterday I was at a panel discussion. I was invited for a panel discussion in Bangalore, and this panel discussion was on leadership. I was with 3 other leaders. I was with the founder of Mindtree, with the chief digital officer of Titan Watches, and someone from 3M, a design manager from 3M. And we were talking about 4 themes from leadership. And one of the themes was about personal transformation leadership. What does it mean? Now, this seems very vague, right? How do you talk about personal transformation leadership? But one of the things they said is we make it personal. Right? Talk about you as a person. So when I walked into that meeting, one of the things I did was I picked up my life story right from the time I started in Cognizant, and I brought through 4 stories that exemplified qualities like servant leadership, that exemplified qualities like, who packs your parachute, and managing the manager or managing upwards, things like that, which actually helped me transform myself as a leader. So I spoke about one case where I failed miserably in the US. Nobody was ready to touch me. This was back in 1999. So everyone talks about failure, and they say we all must accept failure. Now that's great on paper. When it actually happens, when the rubber hits the road, are you ready to accept someone who has failed? My own boss dropped me. Not a single person was ready to pick me up. I had a newborn baby at that time. I was in the US. I didn't have a project. I didn't know where to go. I didn't even know what my future was like. And then I got a call out of the blue from my first manager in Cognizant. And he said, Sudhir, I heard about you. Why don't you come over to the UK? And I moved to the UK, and I've never looked back ever since. And this was a story. I took them right into the situation. They understood the pain. They understood what it meant to be there, because many of them had also gone through failure. They had also experienced cases where people had dropped them and said, fail career, yeah, is gone. Don't touch him. So, show, don't tell is about taking people into that situation and making them experience it. Does that make sense, Raman?
Sure, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure, and good luck. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.